the immediate thing that struck me was the parallels that could be structurally in the story to my mentor's old movie Amadeus, and that it may not be obvious from the outside, but they had a similar challenge, which is that you're never going to kind of psychoanalyze or solve who Mozart was. Right. But what you do instead is you make the movie about the problem of genius, in a sense, the challenge that genius or talent faces all of us regular folks with, which is how do we cope with someone who has this kind of volcanic super ability.
Hey, Pete.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Nice
Great to see you.
Toshi. How you doing? Hey, me around the world in 80 days, huh?
It's a magic carpet ride. Just full of wonder. Full of wonder.
This is Becca, by the way.
Nice to meet you. This is my wife, Toshi.
Nice to meet you. I absolutely love your music. I'm such a big fan, Mr. Seeger.
Pete.
Oh, Pete.
Harold is putting the lean on you there? Trying to get you to play?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Well, don't hold it against him. It's for a good cause. Want to use this beauty?
They always keep it handy, huh, Pete? He's like a gunfighter with a six-gun, always keeping it close. Oh, the time will come up when the winds will stop and the breeze will cease to be breathing. Like the stillness in the wind for the hurricane begins. The hour that the ship comes in. And the seas will split and the ship will hit. And the sands on the shoreline will be shaking. And the tide will sound and the wind will pound. And the morning will be breaking.
Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today I have one of the most versatile filmmakers in the movie business. There's no question about it. James Mangold has done so many different movies of so many different genres, you cannot pigeonhole him. And his latest is A Complete Unknown, which is the early Bob Dylan origin story here. And welcome, James Mangold.
Thank you, Pete.
And it's true. You do, if you look at your filmography here, you can't say you do the same kind of thing over and over. It looks like you're attracted to all kinds of different genres: westerns, musicals, action pictures, dramas, on and on and on, sci-fi.
Race car movies.
Race car movies. In that way, too, you're just like Howard Hawks. He did that all the time, too. He even had his own race car movie.
Well, that's very flattering, but the real life reality of it is I just kind of, as both a writer and a director, it just feels like after, the 2 to 3 years you spend on a movie, you just want to go someplace new. And like after I made Copland many years ago, which was like almost all male movie, I made Girl Interrupted. And honestly, it was less a choice about genre than just feeling like in some way I wanted to escape the men's locker room for a movie, but it is also, I was never conscious of trying to be versatile.
Right.
I just try to make the kinds of movies I like to watch.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of happened.
And it seems like you like to watch all kinds of movies.
I do. I do.
And and they're so good too, which is what I really appreciate here of the kind of movies that you make. You really like 3:10 to Yuma, the Western you did, which was there was it was a remake basically, but completely new in its own way, and people weren't making Westerns when you did that.
No, and it was a passion project for me because it was a movie I actually studied the original as a student, and something I really pushed forward at Sony, and then it ended up falling apart there. And but a lot of that is the anxiety about Westerns. It really exists. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety about different genre, which I think is sometimes maybe testing might prove it true, but quality works, right, and drama works, and I don't think there's a single genre that people reject out of hand. And if we all would find the one genre that everyone wants to buy, what are we going to do? Make it over and over again?
Right. Yeah. How did you get in? I'm fascinated. I saw you went to Cal Arts and studied under Alexander McKendrick, who is just this amazing director, did Ealing comedies, did
And Sweet Smell of Success,
Success and things until he wasn't really working. He sort of left in the
Well,
60s.
I was close to him, and I was his teaching assistant. I mean, he was a dramatic personality, and I think that the business changed. I mean, I think about the time he retired and started teaching was also the great kind of contraction when television kind of took over in the 60s, and movies just kind of vanished, except for the biggest spectacles. But he also had a series of misfortunes, you know. I mean, he was prepping Guns of Navarone. And got fired about 2 weeks before I think the movie started.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was an incredible. He had sketches for the Great Cave and the Guns in the Cave in his office, and he was a great teacher. And you know, the tragedy of the end of his directing career became the kind of great benefit of Cal Arts, where they got a master in residence teaching day in and day out, and with the same passion that he'd make a movie, only on our asses about our work as students. And I've often, and then I went to Columbia later and I studied with Milos Forman. And you know, the one thing when people ask me about the experiences with some of the best teachers I've had is yes, they had great lessons to offer, but they also had the example of their force of personality.
Right.
The kind of and the level they worked. I mean, Sandy, you know, I was 17 when I got to Cal Arts, and, you know, every Wednesday we had our mentor meeting, and so he'd go over, you know, whatever screenplay or thing I was working on. And because I was 17, 18 years old, you're talking about someone who's probably writing the script he has to hand in the night before. And so I'd hand in some 5-page script, and Sandy, on mentoring day, would have 7 pages of notes on my 5-page script.
Wow.
And the point being, first of all, you're honored, but second of all, and he's trashing your script pretty much. But separate from that, he's setting a kind of example, you know, of what it's like to really do the work.
Yeah.
Meaning, yes, I know you handed me this half thought out scribble you did at 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, but I'm going to give it back to you like you were serious, and I'm serious. And it suddenly elevates the whole discussion because he's investing in you, you know.
It's amazing. And didn't you get a writing, directing deal at Disney when you were like 22 years old?
21, right out of Cal Arts.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. It was
I
crazy.
never hear those kind of stories.
I had a student film that I guess you could call was hot out of Cal Arts, and Michael Eisner saw it, and somehow I ended up represented by Jeff Berg, who was then chairman of ICM, and he made a deal for me at Disney at 21. So it's kind of crazy because I'm still working for Disney. And,
you are in this crazy world that we're in now.
and I feel like I've never stopped. And that was a real experience. I mean, I don't think I was ready. I mean, I think I was technically ready, but I don't think honestly, there is such a thing as fortune striking too young, and I don't know that I had the stories to tell together yet, you know. And I mean, I was a kid, and it was, and I was without a mentor. Like I really felt you know, they don't teach in film school how studio politics works, or how development works, or how business works in a sense, and so. All you have is these kind of legends of people fighting for their ideas. But I mean, definitely in those days, I was someone who was fighting for my ideas, and everyone was like, "Who is this guy? Because why is he fighting us so hard?" And I was, you know, and I really was ambitious, and I wanted to, but I think they wanted to bring me up through the world of TV movies and kind of. I'm not sure what their real goal ultimately was, but in a way I'm really glad it kind of ended because it allowed me to kind of drop back out, and I ended up going back to school, and that's where I met Milos, and that's where I developed the first feature, Heavy, that I made that went to Sundance.
Heavy, with no less, terrific cast, but no less than Shelly Winters, who I've always been obsessed with. I once saw her do a live play in Long Beach. She didn't know the line, so she was like on book on opening. It was the best. But I mean, Shelly, to work with people
No,
like that.
she's, and once I had survived Shelly Winters, I was ready for everything
I
else.
would imagine.
Bring on Sylvester Stallone, Bob De Niro, and Harvey Keitel.
And all of those people
Yeah.
in your early films. I mean, Stallone and De Niro in the same movie in Copland.
That was literally my next movie. So that's crazy,
yeah.
right? And Ray Liotta. I mean, we could keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, you've always had a way with actors, though, and casting and getting the right people in the right roles, and right through Ford versus Ferrari, and Christian Bale and Matt, and now on to Timothée Chalamet is so fantastic.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? He does a great job.
Just amazing. And so how long did this development period go on? How long have you been trying to bring this to the screen, this one?
Well, it started really fast. I was on the way to Telluride with Ford Ferrari when Matthew Greenfield and David Greenbaum handed me materials they had just acquired from a turnaround of this Dylan project. And and I was immediately, when I heard about the period of time, because, I'm a kind of music crazy,
Right,
I knew what it was. And
Well,
I knew
obviously you had done Walk the Line.
Yeah.
The younger Johnny Cash and
with
June.
Joaquin and Reese. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oscar
anyway, and it was, and I thought, oh, maybe I'm going to finally return to a genre, but but it was really just the what you're always focused on. This is true for Ford Ferrari when it's a true life story, especially, but frankly, it's true in any movie. But in true life stories, they offer this kind of crutch that they really happened for the writers, where you can just kind of start the story at birth and end at death, and kind of think you told the story and kind of feel like you told the story.
Right.
But for me, these movies, even if they really happened, they have to work with the same story mechanics of a successful fiction film, which would be, not many people make fiction films that start at birth and end at death. Usually pick a pivotal moment that you arrive on this character's life and you follow them through a very compressed or intense period of time where the following changes happen, etc. And so where these biopics can run into problems is where they become just a never-ending series of dates on the bottom of the screen,
Right.
and kind of this kind of parade of tableaus, if you will, recreations of historically important moments. And what was so striking to me about the period of time that this project was covering in this Elijah Wald book was that it was really focused on mostly on the period of time leading up to Newport 65 and Bob's going electric at that concert. But I also saw it as a kind of fairy tale, a kind of fable about this young man with hardly $1 in his pocket arriving with just a notebook full of songs to this big city, and going to meet his hero who is ailing in the hospital. I mean, it sounds like a pitch of a fiction film, and his hero and his first lieutenant Pete Seeger hear him sing. And sooner than you can blink, he's in clubs, and sooner than that, he's got a deal at the largest record company in the world. Yeah. And within 2 years, is not only the face of folk music, but is a gigantic star. Yeah. And the story has this kind of almost Shakespearean turn to it, in the sense that he then, of course, is getting restless, and he never wanted this mantle upon him, and ends up kind of those same allyships ends up getting fractured at the end of our movie, but also in this great real life story.
And it's great because you've got these two fabulous actresses, Monica Bakaro and Elle Fanning.
Monica Barbaro and Elle Fanning. Yeah.
And Elle Fanning, and both of them are great. Monica plays Joan Baez. Elle plays, I think, his first girlfriend, but not by her name in the movie.
Yeah, that was simply just a request from Bob, that he felt that was the one person in the story who was essentially a civilian.
Right.
And not a celebrity in that sense.
Yeah, so didn't want her name in there. So she plays the character, Sylvie. But both of them are fantastic in
Oh,
this.
well, they're both great actresses, yeah.
Yeah, and they're given this, great opportunity in this movie, both of them, in what they do in it.
Well, honestly, there's a lot of wonderful actors in the movie, and one of the ways I tried with Jay Cox to construct the script was Bob's kind of. I don't think you're ever going to crack him like in the classic kind of movie Freudian thing where like he's traumatized because this happened in his childhood and that's why he does X, which is kind of a well-worn staple of our movies. And suddenly somewhere in the third act he'll go, I do this because I'm frightened of what, right. And I didn't want to do that with this picture, and I felt that would oversimplify someone who is a uniquely complicated individual. But you have to somehow figure out how to get purchase around the character. And speaking of Milos, had this, when I was on that flight with David and Matthew, the immediate thing that struck me was the parallels that could be structurally in the story to my mentor's old movie Amadeus. And that it may not be obvious from the outside, but they had a similar challenge, which is that you're never going to kind of psychoanalyze or solve who Mozart was. But what you do instead is you make the movie about the problem of genius, in a sense. The challenge that genius or talent faces all of us regular folks with, which is how do we cope with someone who has this kind of volcanic super ability? And how does that affect each one of these lives? So what I'm getting to is that all these wonderful cast of characters we have in the film are all the people with whom we are all kind of different Salieri's in a way, each affected in a different way by this unique character with this unique power who's moving through their lives.
And Pete Seeger, played brilliantly by Edward Norton here.
He's so great in it. Yeah.
I mean, my God, he is Pete Seeger.
Yeah.
Look at him; he looks like him. But
he took out some of his dental work to play the role. Yeah, I mean, obviously you can see his head is shaved, and he fully transformed.
I love actors; they have their own dentist, and they go.
Yes,
Johnny Depp's famous for that too. All of them do that kind of thing. When you were talking about Milos Forman, that was interesting too, because I was thinking not just that you mentioned Amadeus, but Man in the Moon, which was about Andy Kaufman, and then the People versus Larry Flint, has very unique takes on real life people here, and playing it, just like you did with Johnny and June and here and Ford versus Ferrari. And
well, in a funny way, doing real life stories is not that different than doing kind of major IP, because everyone has their own opinion. Of who Bob Dylan is, and everyone has their own opinion of who Wolverine is, or Spider-Man is, or any character in Star Wars or Dune or anywhere else. And so you're always going to, you kind of almost have to kind of understand that you're going to frustrate or challenge some people, but that ultimately it's like this has to be your version of this story. Someone else can do a different one, and that for me, one of the main roles I feel like I have to play as director on the picture is to actually kind of protect the cast from that burden. From let them play, because the pressure, if they get aware of it, of the kind of judgment upon them, which is different than when you just play a character that no one knows. There's a different kind of judgment. Do they look like him? Do they sound exactly like him? Is he walking like him? And it's like, well, and that's not the goal. I think that people misunderstand the goal, but it always reminds me of an interaction I had with Joaquin when we were making Walk the Line, which he would very sweetly come up to me each morning and go, say that thing. And I go, okay, you're not Johnny Cash. And he goes, thank you. And what that meant was just, you're an actor playing Johnny Cash, and you can't get everything exactly. You have to make him yours. You can't just become, a Disney Hall of Presidents animatronic doing Johnny Cash or Bob Dylan. You have to. Timmy had to bring a piece of Timmy to Bob, and that's the only way you ever make anything worth watching.
And as in Walk the Line, he does his own singing. This is not lip syncing to Bob Dylan's tracks.
It's not lip syncing even to Timmy's tracks. It's Timmy singing live on set.
Live, which is remarkable. I know he worked on it for years doing other movies, and he'd have his guitar and things, but it's
remarkable, but there really was no other way to do it. I mean, the reality is that when you could, there's other movies, if you were talking about music movies, about other kinds of musicians that maybe it works right. But the reality is, what is folk music? But a human voice and a guitar in the most simplistic way, bare, raw, kind of exposed, vulnerable. And it's never about the best recording. It's never even about hitting every note. It's about a kind of authenticity, right? So if my methodology for making a movie about folk music was to have everyone having earwigs in their ears and singing to playback on a countdown with a click track, I mean, this is all the technology that goes with that stuff. I just felt it would undermine the essential milieu and aesthetics of the whole movie.
Yeah, but we have to buy him, and boy, do you buy him in this role. Getting the essence of it is really extraordinary.
And he grows the character. The other thing I'm so proud about what Timmy does is you feel, I mean, well, you've seen the movie, but it's the guy you meet in the beginning sure as hell isn't the guy at the end, right?
No.
So and that's not like it happens in one cut. That's a process, and he really grows the character through that movie.
And on X or Twitter or whatever it's called, I see Bob Dylan.
Oh
has
yeah, he
gotten
did
into,
yesterday.
talking about his opinions here, and he seems very positive.
Yeah, well, he was included in the process, and I had the joy and the honor of spending several days with him, going over the script and also just asking him, if you're a biographer writing a book, there's probably the questions you'd ask Bob Dylan. They're not necessarily the questions Jim Mangold is going to ask if he has to make a movie about your life. The same thing happened because I had the good fortune to spend time, a good amount, with Johnny Cash before we made Walk the Line, and you learn so much just having a chance to ask uninhibited questions to this person who was really lovely, and made me feel immediately at ease when he said he liked Copland. So that was,
there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
That's really cool.
It is.
Getting back to Timmy on just one thing, I felt like I sort of discovered him because I saw a movie called Miss Stevens. I had never heard of Timothée Chalamet.
I've never seen Miss Stevens,
oh my
so
God.
tell me about it.
You have to see Miss Stevens. But anyway, it was something in 2016. I saw it. It was an indie movie. They said, all right, I'll go see it. And I'm going I came out of that movie and I go, who is he? Who is this kid? And I asked the director, Julia Hart, this whole thing, where'd you find him? And all of that. He had done a few little things, but he has the most extraordinary monologue. He plays a drama student, and they're on a field trip with the whole drama class. And Miss Stevens is their teacher, and he does a monologue from Death of a Salesman. And it was just like, who is he? So I booked it for my screening series, and we had hoped that he would come. I had Julia there. He was in New York. But he wrote me this email, just to give you an idea of who this guy is. Hey, Pete, my name's Timothée Chalamet. You're screening a film I'm in tonight as part of your series. I hope this isn't too unusual or off-putting. No one's prompted me to write this. Certainly I didn't expect a response. But I wanted to thank you for what you've said about the film and my performance. Your words say to me, look on your path. To just focus on doing a good job, forget any distractions. This is what I try to tell myself. And it goes on. And that tells you everything you need to know about him. I mean, just so focused on doing the work.
Yes, that is.
Even back then, this was 8 years ago.
And I feel like in the 5 years we've been, when that plane ride to Telluride, when I got involved in this movie, that was 5 years ago, over.
Yeah.
And I met Timmy. That was Telluride. I met Timmy in Toronto, and we kind of made the commitment to do the movie together. And the 5 years since that moment and now, I've seen him, of course, grow immeasurably, and of course, the movies suddenly behind him are.
But now he's become this enormous star.
Well, he's made a couple of incredibly brilliant choices and done really well in those films, and also people are thirsty for who is that going to be, and he's just a singular talent, and also with a kind of preternatural or kind of instinctual understanding of how to act for camera. As someone who's done this for a long time now, there's this you just are amazed, mostly when it's a young person who already understands how to use that rectangle, how to use the way the light is falling upon them. They're not only in character, but they're helping you light and shoot the picture in the way they do their stuff. And he is the whole 9 yards.
It's interesting. You went from working with a true legend, Harrison Ford, directly into...
To someone 1/4 of his age.
Yeah,
yes,
right, which is interesting, you know, that kind of juxtaposition.
Well, good actors are good actors, and that's but the reality is that it was a joy. This project with Timmy has been and process with him has been an absolute joy, and in a way, we have had the benefit. It was painful when COVID hit, of course, and the movie went away. And then as soon as, you know, Timmy had fulfilled other commitments he had, and I had to take, that was when I did Indy, and then we got back together. Then there was industry strikes.
Yeah.
And finally we got to this point 5 years later where we could, you know, we only shot in March this year. We finished in June.
Man, by the way, Indiana Jones, I saw it at Cannes at its premiere, you know, and I thought, when I read some things about it, you know, people are harping on different things and things, I go like, I thought that movie totally delivered. I mean, that scene where Harrison Ford is riding a horse through the subway and
system in
else
New York
was spectacular.
Do you remember the show McCloud with Dennis
Oh,
Weaver?
very
That's
well.
where that idea came to me.
Is that-
I think in the title sequence. Well, I appreciate that, and you know, I've learned a lot. I've made a bunch of movies now, and there have been movies I made. You know, Girl Interrupted would be an example where when that came out, I felt like I'd made a bomb. And flash forward decades later, I never stopped hearing, particularly from women, about how important that movie is to them. And I see
Angelina Jolie won an Oscar.
Yeah,
for
but
it,
it lived on, and and it's like you really there's the first verdict when a movie comes out, but then there's time, and I had. You know, there wasn't a lot of choices of things to do when COVID hit, but I had the most splendiferous, fantastic, inspiring time making that film. Harrison Ford is a kind of hero of mine since I started, but so is Steven Spielberg and Kathy
and he had
Kennedy
directed the previous 4, so you're walking into...
Well, and these are all people who came to me and welcomed me with open arms and friendship, and are still my friends. And and John Williams, one of the most inspiring, you know, collaborations I ever had in my life, with an absolute genius, legend.
Yeah, amazing. You know, and you went into another, you know, a franchise and just killed it with a Logan and Wolverine, the 2 pictures you did. I think Logan's the only movie in the Marvel world that ever got an Oscar nomination for its screenplay.
Oh,
and,
wow.
You know, because it took something that we thought we knew and made it human.
Well, Scott Frank and I had a great time on that,
Yeah.
working on the script, and and we were really set free to make a movie that both cherished Wolverine, but also at the same time tried to kind of strip away some of the aesthetics that had developed, the kind of almost plastic feeling that these movies had via visual effects or even design. I just wanted to make one that was more earthbound in a way, or felt more earthbound and character-based. You know, the trend had been that every one of these movies has to be about the fate of the world. You know, if we don't do this, the world's over. Now, if we don't do this, the solar system is the galaxy will be destroyed if we don't. And the funny thing is, it doesn't mean an ounce more to an audience, whether it's Duluth or it's the Earth or it's the galaxy,
Right.
because it's really how much you care about the people in the film, and this kind of, you know, there's this kind of nuclear arms race of stakes in those movies that I think we just tried to really step back from and go, what if it's not about the fate of anything but these characters?
Yeah, so interesting. I hear you've got a Star Wars movie in your head.
Well, one I pitched to Kathy a while ago, trying to kind of create a new space in Star Wars, a new story space, as it were, where, you know, there would be something that obviously connects to all the other stories, but that we'd also be there at kind of the dawning and discovery of the Force. Yeah. And it was something I wrote out a kind of pitch for and a treatment for, and I met with George about it, and I talked with him, and I kind of developed a take that then, while I've been doing Complete Unknown, Bo Willimon has taken the pages I had done and has been kind of flying with them, and we'll see where we get in the next few months. You know, you never know. But to me, the key is just, you know, you do that if it's great.
Yeah.
It's got to be great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I hope you're still doing Swamp Thing. Are you?
I'm working on that as well.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, no, kind of gothic horror movie, kind of, and no, and it sounds, you know.
That'll be the, you know, Howard Hawks. I compared you to him.
Oh,
he produced The Thing.
The Thing, that's right.
So Swamp
that's
Thing.
Right.
There you
yeah,
go.
well, you know, I love all this stuff, and it's like, you know, I'm a kid in a candy shop to the degree that it probably started when I made the move from Heavy to Copland, both of which I had written, and suddenly I was a guy who had made a kind of independent film, and then I was a guy who had made a big star cop movie. And at that moment, it was, no one already knew what box to put me in. And so then it just felt freeing to keep jumping. And I haven't stopped ever since.
Always fun to talk to you, James.
You too,
Mangold.
Pete. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.